I'm now in the 4th year working on this food forest / permaculture garden in Maryland Zone 7A, and I wanted to put a video out kind of showing some of the species that are doing well and comment on others that aren't doing so well. Put out some info that others might benefit from on, what's working well for me here and what's not, challenges, lessons learned, etc. Let's see. So there was an orchard, established, not orchard, but maybe 10 fruit trees kind of high in this space, and there was some annual veggie beds down low, actually covered in carpeting, or the aisleways in carpeting. So we pretty much started from scratch, put in these 3 swales, and I've been planting stuff out along the swales. 2 big Chinese chestnut trees on the north end here that produce lots of chestnuts, but they're freaking spiky as hell, so they're almost more of a pain than they are a value add. But yeah, everything along these swales is new basically, and I didn't plant all of this in the first year. I've kind of been incrementally adding things. This is wineberry and weedy stuff, barberry. Got some Juneberries here, 2 right here, and a couple others, which look pretty good this year. I wouldn't say they've done the best, but I'm optimistic. Another one there. Got various bush cherries. This is a Hansen's bush cherry. I think also common name sand cherry, I believe. A little bit floppy, but they're doing okay. I've got some Nanking bush cherries down there that actually do really well. So I would say the Nanking have been a very successful choice here. Juneberry. Currants have done generally pretty well. This is all Jerusalem artichoke, which is a pain in the ass. Lesson learned. Think before you plop that down, because it's kind of just going everywhere, but that's all right. Bunch of honeyberries. I don't think there are any berries on that guy. What is this guy? Interesting. That's a honeyberry. The biggest leaves I've seen in a while on a honeyberry, but that's new growth just from this year. This top end gets a lot of sun in the mornings, as you can tell right now. And in the once the warmer temps of summer arrive, I think plants like currants and honeyberries struggle. They definitely have in the past, but they screen back on. Yeah, you can see they're fruiting pretty. I mean, this guy's small, but yeah, they do pretty well early in the year. Man, this vetch is choking it out. There's a honeyberry in there somewhere. Man, look at the fruits on that guy. So yeah, I love the honeyberry fruit's delicious. They do pretty well. I'd say the only downside is they don't do so well with super hot temps and full sun in the peak of summer, but right now they're pretty happy. Similar story for currants. Like early in the year they're super happy. Even in summer, like I think black currant, for example, does a bit better in full sun and hot temps. Put in some goji berries last year. This one's not too happy, but in general those have done pretty well. There was an old Asian persimmon right here that died, but there are 2 American, I think an American Asian hybrid, and another, I don't know, another persimmon down there. But first 2 years those struggled, but this year they look a lot better. Looks beautiful this year. Lots of new growth. Gumi and autumn olive have both done incredibly well. Autumn olive is essentially an invasive here, but an invasive with delicious berries. It's actually kind of their feral ones all scattered around, but I've got 2 amber autumn olive and probably like 8 gumis. But yeah, they all have done very well and produce tons of fruit. So that's been a pretty positive or a successful species here. Juneberry. I've got a number of those that the first year did really well and had lots of fruit. Like this guy, I don't know why he's so sparsely vegetated up high. So there's some issues with our Juneberries. I don't know quite what's going on. They look all right this year. We'll see. This is a Hanson's bush cherry or sand cherry, which I've got a couple of those. They have not done all that great. I think it's more like a like that one's doing quite well. We've got two down there that are okay, and a couple others that have died or are just barely hanging on. Just put in some grapes this year, muscadine grapes that so far are doing well. Put a bunch of strawberries in this year, little minis that so far are doing pretty well. Pretty hot and dry right now, but yeah, they're doing all right. Another goji berry, and I've got one more there that produced lots of fruit last year. Not the tastiest fruit, but it's pretty good. Got 3 figs. This is one of them doing real well. Comfrey. So I've got both the wild variety Comfrey that's able to set viable seed. This is that, and then also some of the Bocking 14 kind of non-viable variety that you could only propagate via root cuttings. That's what this guy is. And I guess lesson learned, the Comfrey that can set seeds will and for sure does propagate on its own pretty readily. That's a Bocking 14 or whatever. So I've got some of both varieties. It does great. It grows like crazy, and the bees love the flowers. It's pretty easy to weed as well. Like for example, I mean, you can just real easily kind of a chop and drop deal. So and it's a good, it kind of smothers out weeds or functions as a good barrier. So yeah, I think Comfrey's been a great species to work with, or it is working out well. Some more honeyberries, raspberry, Egyptian walking onion, which I had these in a couple other places and they're not doing great. This year finally they're doing okay, but not super great. This is an old pear which sends up these water sprout deals like crazy, probably maybe because I'm over pruning it, but they're a hot mess. That guy as well. Another pear there. We put in a bunch of plums or various prunus. You can see plums developing on this guy up high. This one actually did, I think this is a Santa Rosa plum, which has produced pretty well in the past, but most of these prunus trees have had like serious disease issues, which I think is pretty common in the humid. I mean, look at this, it's like a fucking mutant. But I mean, it's got lots of fruit, so we'll see. Like sometimes they do well, other times they're like every single fruit dies and drops off. This is a peach that shot up from was a kind of a sucker from an old peach tree, so it's probably the root stock of that old peach tree that's shooting up, and it's grown like crazy. It was literally a maybe 3 foot tall sucker when I cut down the original peach tree, but it produced some peaches last year. They taste fine, so I'm leaving it for now. Asian pears have done really well. The squirrels climb up on them and have broken off some of the branches, or kind of bent the branches, but otherwise they've produced pretty well. Some strange growth going on there, but got 3 Asian pears that they're small, but they've done well. Trying out some new things up here. Apios americana, American groundnut. Looks pretty hot and dry, but hopefully these guys will, yeah, they're starting to twine up there. Some Welsh onion seeds I put in that are doing okay, but man, they need some watering. Some scarlet runner beans, or a single scarlet runner bean plant. Hopefully I've got some more beans sprouting that'll hopefully make it. Put in 3 hardy kiwis, which is a species that's new to me, but the 2 females here are doing really well. 1 male, looks very different. I think it's well, it was branded a pollinator for Actinidia aguda, but it looks a whole lot different. But anyway, so far those are doing pretty well. More blackberries doing great. Apple trees, these two are in pretty good sun and they're doing pretty well. I think this is a gala, whatever, and a Honeycrisp maybe, more Comfrey, but the apple's doing pretty well. This is a Macintosh, I believe. Again, in good sun and doing pretty well. This is a cherry tree from that was in the old orchard. Got some wounds or some issues. Don't know whether, yeah, there's some fruits forming, so this guy's doing pretty well. And I pruned back these pine trees a little bit, so he's getting more sun. What else? There are the blueberries, pear. Put a gumi in the middle there. That one's not looking super healthy. Gotta watch where I'm walking here. Something snapped off that branch. I've put Pawpaws in various places. They're they're doing all right, but very slow growing. I think these, see, I can't even find the other one. I know there's one here. Here he is. I think these, lesson learned, I probably could have done better protecting them from full sun. Even now, I think the young ones need some shade. Here's a Nanking bush cherry, and I said those, like, I've got 3 down there and another couple. They do well and they've produced tons of fruit. You can see this guy's already loaded, but they've had these weird issues where entire stems just die back, like right here. I don't know what, I'm assuming it's some sort of critter that I haven't really investigated, but I'm assuming some critter like gets into the stem and, cuts off the flow of nutrients or something. There's another Nanking. I have Egyptian walking onions. Oh, there's one more Egyptian walking onion. Not doing so well. This is a nectarine, super tall, but also super diseased. What else? I talked about these 2 plums, peach. This is another, is it nectarine or, I don't know, but in general, the prunus trees have not been successful. The apples have done pretty well. These existing pears produce tons of pears and have done amazingly well. I don't know what, I think they're 2 different varieties. I don't know what they are, but pears have produced really, really well. That was an old plum that was diseased and basically dead that I cut back, and it's resprouting. But yeah, all the plums have had issues for sure. Here are some of the Hanson's. Oh wait, sorry, that's a currant. Here we go, Hanson's bush cherry. That's probably maybe only its 3rd year, but it's for sure struggled. Here's another guy also struggling. So I don't know why, like, here they are struggling, that guy as well, and they're doing better down low. Maybe they, I don't know, that's a pretty sunny spot. Maybe too sunny, not sure. What else? So here are a couple more Hansons, the kind of skinny guys. Doing okay, but not great. I think this year they'll have pretty good fruit set. This is an Aronia. I've got 2 Aronia black chokecherry Viking, I think, that do great, 0 pest issues, produce lots of berries that are a little bit fibrous but pretty good. Comfrey. So here's a Nanking that's sort of struggling, and yeah, you can sort of see the same behavior where, like, the end of the stem just dies, but otherwise totally fine. Another bush cherry. I think this is a Joy, and I planted a Jan that's itty bitty and half dead, but we'll see. Another so these Nankings are doing great in lots of sun, except for this shit. I don't know what. They still produce tons of fruit, but I'm curious what is going on that causes, like, the branch to just die. Yeah, not sure. The persimmon I mentioned, autumn olive, super tall. This is a jujube. I've got 2 jujubes, Chinese date, that are doing better this year than they ever have. Gumi, some bee balm, yarrow, another jujube. This is a different variety of Juneberry. Amelanchier, or I can't even say that genus, but I think this is Arborea maybe, versus, what's the other one? I don't know. Anyway, different Juneberry. This is one of the few Pawpaws that's looking really good. It's in a bit shadier spot, so that's probably helping. One more up there. So yeah, these, of the various Pawpaw cultivars I planted, these 2 kind of at the far north with some shade are doing the best. And these are some Pawpaws seeds I harvested out of the wild that I planted, and again, you know, happy here in the shade. Almost done. I'll do this bottom half and then be done. Mulberry, I planted 2 Illinois ever-bearing mulberry, and this guy's doing well. I think this is probably 3 in its 3rd year, and they were only maybe 2.5 feet tall when I planted them. But those first 2 years had some sort of caterpillar would like denude them, like totally wipe it out, and then it would sort of grow back, and then it would get denuded again. There's another guy there, which is almost seems like the top part of it's dead. It's resprouting from the base. So some pest issues, but this year this guy's looking good, and hopefully the other one also bounces back. Pawpaw looking pretty good, although very small. Here are the 2 other figs I mentioned, which have done really well. Actually, I think I saw a fig already developing on that guy. I've got 3 European hazelnuts that I put in last year. Obviously some critter is eating on these, and we haven't seen any fruit yet, but they're doing okay. Another pawpaw, fig. This is the guy that had some itty bitty little figs forming, tiny, but European hazelnut. We've got 1 American over there, and a couple more tiny American hazelnuts. Elderberry, it was super windy yesterday, which is I think why, although that's older, but this elderberry's doing too well almost. It's been sending up shoots, you know, away from the main plant that I'm having to kind of try to corral it and keep it sort of there. Another elderberry that lost some of its branches when we took down a big ash tree, but elderberries have done really well. Here are excuse me, the 2, I guess this is the 1 Hansen's bush cherry, sand cherry, that is doing well. Don't know what is so much different about, I guess it's shadier and a little cooler down here than up high. Although I think the species sand cherry is like from the American West and like used to hot, dry, sandy conditions, so maybe it's that it's too wet up there, I'm not sure. Another gumi. Here's a, what is this, Nanking, and then a Juneberry doing pretty well. 2 cherry trees doing okay. This is the other Aronia, black choke cherry, chokeberry, yeah, doing well. I've got 2 beach plum, I think it's Prunus maritima. I moved this guy over a foot this year, but doesn't seem too bothered by that, and I think we might have fruit on these 2 beach plums for the first time. They're planted super tight with this other stuff. Here's another Nanking with tons of fruit. Similar issue here with the stems dying back partly, but there's still going to be tons of cherries on these guys, so no issue really. Here's some of the, when I first sprinkled, so I had kind of a makeshift swale down low here before I redid everything on contour, and I sprinkled some comfrey seeds, and that's kind of along this line here is from when I did that. So these are all the variety that can you know, set viable seed, which, and they get out of control, but they're a decent kind of living mulch, or you know, you can use them to kind of mulch around other stuff. Some currants down low here that are pretty happy in this shadier section. Some pawpaws down here that, you know, are getting decent shade, but pawpaws have sort of struggled. I mean, they're in the woods, you know, 50 feet away, pawpaw groves that are totally happy, but out in the open here, not quite as happy. Just this year I planted 2 pineapple guava. This is new growth finally shooting out of this guy. One more over there. I know those are just borderline viable here in zone 7A, so might need some protection from if we get super cold weather, but we'll see. And then the one American hazelnut I have that's, you know, got leaves on it is this guy, and this one basically, when the big ash tree fell, lost its kind of main branch, so it's, I mean, but it lost half of its size, so it's kind of having to start over a little bit this year, but doing pretty well, sending up shoots way off to the side here. I planted some potatoes last year that, I think I planted them kind of late, and they kind of melted, but they're all shooting back up, so we'll see. I haven't had any real success with potatoes, but maybe this year they'll do better. Yes, these are some purple flowering raspberry, more of an ornamental. Pretty flowers though, and you know, marginally edible raspberry like things. So yeah, I mean, I guess the one, grasses are for sure a challenge. I haven't done any sort of sheet mulching yet, which I really should do for sure in, like, you know, any sort of in-ground bed. Tons of grasses, chickweed obviously early in the year. I mean, you know, just tons of chickweed, which I'm starting to view as sort of a resource because it's super easy to weed, and you know, you can kind of smother out other stuff with it. You can kind of, well, in places see where I've done that. So the chickweed's not a huge issue. It's sort of annoying. The vetch is like mildly annoying because it climbs up stuff. Morning glory, incredibly annoying because or morning glory slash bindweed, because it kind of twines up stuff and, you know, does, you can see it here twisting up this guy. So that's a pain in the butt to manage, because it does kind of end up choking stuff out. But I think the main grassy thing that is annoying for me is the Japanese basket grass that's invasive in the woods as well. Japanese basket grass or wavy leaf basket grass. We've got both of them, but that hasn't shut up yet. It kind of doesn't really start doing its thing until summer hits. But yeah, that's a challenge in pretty much, you know, everywhere. Raised beds, in ground, you know, along the swales. There's other stuff, you know, other weeds that, well, yeah, you can see it there in the middle. The kind of light green patches are the basket grass just shooting up. Maybe I'll step in here. Violets also, I mean, they have big leaves, so they do cast a lot of shade or like steal a lot of light. But I'm not, I mean, I like the flowers. The leaves are decent tasting. This is the whatever the invasive grass thing is I'm referring to. Stilt grass, there we go. What is it? Japanese stilt grass. So yeah, that's a pain. There's some radishes coming up. I haven't done anything in this bed this year. A bunch of radishes coming back. Morning glory. Mints taking over. We've got a bunch of chameleon plant fish plant, which smells horrible, and it's not too hard to weed. Fennel, I guess I made the mistake of planting a bunch of fennel seeds, which is, I mean, I love the taste of it in, like, I'll put it in smoothies, but otherwise I've got way more than I can deal with. So yeah, I haven't had any real success growing annuals, or it's just too hard to keep on top of all the weeding, and you know, tons of, I hadn't noticed this, but lots of radish in this bed. What is that guy, radish? So I mean, some stuff that pops up, and if I really keep on top of weeding, like I just put in these lettuces a couple days ago, but if I keep on top of the weeding, they'll do well. But it's pretty hard to like maintain all the different stuff growing in here, keep ahead of the weeds. So I think I need to do some sort of sheet mulching to really, I don't know about in here, but some of these in-ground beds. We had 3 beds here last year, and I'm going to do a walkway in the middle and just have 2 beds because 3 was a little tight. But yeah, without smothering the like existing grasses, it's just pretty hard for any plantings to compete. I put in some stuff here yesterday, and that's going to be the issue here as well. I mean, unless I'm like weeding this nonstop. I mean, they'll be all right. Some rhubarb doing pretty well. So yeah, I mean, in terms of perennials, I think it's been very successful. There are some species we haven't even gotten a chance to try yet, like these jujubes. They haven't fruited yet, but most of the perennials are producing something now every year. This is the first year we got to harvest any asparagus, which, you know, we waited 3 years to let that get established. So definitely lots of fruit, you know, fruit and berry production now. Not so much on the vegetable front, but now that these swales are mostly planted out, I've kind of, like, you know, in between all the major plantings, slotted in other random stuff. I think I had yarrow here, and bee balm, and anise hyssop, I don't know, various. So a lot of I still want to plant more perennials and explore other perennial vegetables, but now that a lot of the perennial planting is done, I can focus on, I've kind of already missed the boat for 2021, but for next year maybe I'd like to do some proper sheet mulching and maybe like a hugel mound kind of thing, or take advantage of the, you know, the one resource I have in abundance here is wood, sticks. You know, I can run the chipper and generate wood chips pretty easily, or just gather sticks. So might do some sort of sheet mulch kind of thing, and, you know, throw in a bunch of wood chips and sticks and leaf litter and all that kind of stuff, and hopefully smother out the grasses. Yeah, but I'm slowly finding, here's another Egyptian walking onion, finding species that can do well on their own with little to no inputs needed, and that's kind of what I like. I mean, it's easier said than done, or I haven't so far found too many of those. I wish something like comfrey were edible. It might be, actually, but not very tasty. Probably usable in some way. But yeah, looking for species like that just shoot up on their own, and, you know, don't need any care really. I put in some lovage this year. That one's in a pretty shady spot. Got a couple others in better locations, but hopefully, yeah, species like that can come up every year and produce something of value, food, or, you know, as herbs or whatever, without me having to till and weed and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's naive of me to hope for that. Anyway, yeah, hopefully there's somebody else out there in zone 7A, 7B with similar goals, or, you know, similar conditions that can benefit sort of, or at least get some ideas on what species to try out. I would say, I know, you know, I'd say Gumi is probably my favorite, even though it is, you know, a relative of an invasive, but doesn't do quite as well as autumn olive, but the fruits are delicious, bigger and better than autumn olive, and grows super fast. I love Gumi. The Nanking bush cherry has done really well. That's those three over there. You know, some minor issues, but has produced really well, and doesn't seem to, the cherry trees, my neighbor has a couple big cherry trees as well, like that big tall guy back there, seem to suffer more from the plum curculio or whatever, the little worm that like gets inside cherries and plums. And these Nanking, for whatever reason, don't seem to have that problem, or so far I haven't seen, you know, worms crawling in them. Blueberries have done super well. We're fortunate that we inherited a well-established blueberry patch, but yeah, those have produced really well. Currants have done well, at least until it gets super hot. This Aronia definitely produces well and has zero pest issues. Yeah, so still experimenting, trying out things, learning what works and what doesn't. There's definitely stuff we're gonna have to tear out. I think a lot of the prunus trees up there that we planted very early on to replace some of there were other prunus trees dead that we cut down, so that should have been a lesson all by itself. You know, don't plant the same thing again and expect it to do any better. But yeah, the prunus trees have for sure struggled, but maybe these prunus bushes, you know, can kind of supplant those because they're all doing pretty well so far. And I've experimented some with stuff in the woods, or you know, more shade tolerant, trying to get a ramps patch established. Got some watercress that is doing really well down in the woods in a wet spot. I've got some American hazelnut kind of in the shade here, and pawpaws, as I mentioned earlier. So I want to continue exploring things that do well in shade, because this bottom half I'm really not using at all. There was a huge ash tree here, so there's a little more light coming in now, but yeah, this whole bottom half I think I could possibly use in some way. I haven't explored that too much yet. So if anyone has any suggestions on other species I should try, or you know, what does well in shade, or you know, tips for kind of doing better with the species I already have, let me know. Yeah, always looking to learn more and do better. But yeah, I think the way you learn absent any external input is just by trying it out and see what works. And so I've learned a lot just by failing. I think that's oftentimes the best way to learn. So I'm gonna keep on doing that. All right, bye.